The franchise group just voluntarily filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection, which maybe means something to the vitamin shop, but probably less than you initially assume. Last week, there were rumblings in the legacy financial media that Franchise Group Inc., the owner of specialty retail brands including the Vitamin Shop and Pet Supplies Plus, was preparing to file for Chapter 11 bankruptcy within the next week. Then, this weekend, I get an email from a PR agency representing the Vitamin Shop providing me with a nice prepackaged quote, likely because the Vitamin Shop's leadership team knew I'd be creating a what does this news really mean content for supplement industry professionals, many of which own, lead, or work at vendor brands. So I'll share that quote with you to be fair. The Vitamin Shop's business is healthy and strong with sustainable cash flow and dynamic growth initiatives that remain in motion. Our nearly 700 stores and our .com are fully open for business, and our health enthusiast teams are as dedicated as ever to supporting customers on their personal journeys of lifelong wellness. The debt obligations of our parent company necessitated this strategic financial step, which is not reflective of the Vitamin Shop's own financial stability, ongoing commitment to serving our communities, and promising roadmap for future growth. Okay, like I already mentioned, that was word for word exactly what was sent to me by the Vitamin Shop's PR agency. And it could very well be 100% precisely how this all plays out. But to be fair to my audience that trusts my commentary, I'm going to follow my own breadcrumbs and come to my own conclusions. So let's take kind of a quick and short trip back in time for those that don't know how we got to this point. About 5 years ago, the Vitamin Shop was in the midst of an aggressive strategic turnaround plan under new CEO Sharon Lighty, when it was determined that the best go forward strategy included selling itself to an entity at the time known as Liberty Tax for $208 million. After that acquisition, Liberty Tax, which also owned Buddy's Home Furnishings, would change its name to Franchise Group Inc. and go on to acquire several other franchised or franchisable businesses. And Franchise Group would operate as a publicly traded entity for the next 3.5 years until it was decided in May of 2023 that the portfolio would be taken private through a $2.6 billion management buyout. The group that bought Franchise Group was led by then CEO Brian Kahn, but included a consortium of other investment banks and private equity firms like B. Riley Financial. After the transaction was complete, the current Franchise Group management team, including the CEO, would continue to lead the company and run its current portfolio of retail brands. But this is where things get a bit messy because a handful of months later, Brian Kahn, amid a criminal investigation into his role in a securities fraud case tied to the collapse of a defunct hedge fund, stepped down as the CEO of Franchise Group. Yet, that's not the primary reason why Franchise Group just filed voluntary petitions for protection under Chapter 11 of the Bankruptcy Code. The actual explanation requires knowledge of the Franchise Group portfolio businesses, current operational performance, and a bit of economics 101. At the time of the management buyout, Franchise Group owned an assortment of retail assets that obviously included the Vitamin Shop, but also Pet Supplies Plus, Buddy's Home Furnishings, Badcock Furniture, American Freight, and Sylvan Learning. So let's look at those categorically. Wellness CPG, which has been performing well, the pet category also performing well, and then home and furniture, which has struggled immensely the last 2 to 3 years, and then kind of the oddity of the portfolio, personalized tutoring or test prep, which I honestly have no idea about that market performance. And in the last quarter of performance with that retail brand portfolio, Franchise Group generated $1.1 billion in revenue, but had a net loss from operations of about $108 million. And the economy hasn't materially improved or shifted since that May 2023 management buyout timing. So Franchise Group started shedding troubled assets. In December 2023, Franchise Group merged Badcock Furniture with Cons, and In February of 2024, Sylvan Learning was sold to a portfolio company that focuses on youth enrichment businesses. But that wasn't enough, especially as even the Vitamin Shop and Pet Supplies Plus underperformed operationally to franchise group expectations. So then, when you consider that the Federal Reserve hadn't started cutting interest rates until just recently, there was just too much debt on the balance sheet, and the business continuity outlook was grim without seeking out bankruptcy protection. Okay, so now that we're back at the start, armed with a lot more knowledge, where does this all go from here? Well, I read most of the 50 plus first day motions that already amounted to thousands of pages in court documents in hopes that I can provide facts on the franchise group bankruptcy and break down what everything ultimately means for the vitamin shop and the entire supplement industry. But because this bankruptcy lists assets and liabilities each between $1 billion and $10 billion, it will most likely take months and hundreds more court documents that amount to hundreds of thousands of pages to be finalized. So consider this the first content piece in a series that I'll update as needed, which also means I'll keep this one shorter. And this might be a good time to clear up what I was mentioning in that introductory statement because bankruptcy is one of the most misunderstood business actions there is. And the word bankruptcy alone creates an instant negative reaction in our minds. Now, I'm not going to give you the dense business school run through, as I'm sure there's tons of Google machine or chat GPT queries that can help you if you care that much. But just understand that there are a handful of different bankruptcy types. And the two forms of bankruptcy that most people are familiar with, yet incorrectly combine, is Chapter 7 and Chapter 11. Chapter 7 is a total liquidation and is the most common type of bankruptcy for individuals. Typically, businesses don't file Chapter 7 because that type of bankruptcy won't help keep the company's doors open. Instead, most businesses file for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, which is essentially a reorganization plan that both the court and the creditors must approve. Also, because the bankrupt business stays operational during this process, it almost always requires them to secure what they call a debtor in possession or DIP financing. And you might be asking yourself, what would entice a lender to work with an insolvent company? DIP financing is given priority on assets in case of a company's liquidation, an authorized budget, a market or premium interest rate, and any additional comfort measures that the court or lenders believe warrants inclusion. And this is the case in the franchise group bankruptcy. And I won't go through all of the terms because it's not really that important, but as it was stated in the press release, the first lien lender group has committed $250 million in DIP financing that, along with cash on hand, will provide the franchise group with ample liquidity to maintain operations across its businesses and fulfill go forward commitments to employees, customers, vendors, franchise partners, and other stakeholders. Moreover, as part of the restructuring support agreement, Franchise Group will wind down American Freight, with store closing sales starting at locations nationwide and online tomorrow. But let's turn this final part of the content towards how this impacts the different stakeholders of the vitamin shop, at least from what we know as of right now. I'll start with health enthusiasts because there shouldn't be too much interruption on that side, mostly because I don't see any sizable store optimization plans or massive cost cutting programs in the short term future. I also don't see any major operational changes to the long term strategy. For customers of the vitamin shop, the stores will be business as usual and there shouldn't be any noticeable disruption. And then for the corporate side of the vitamin shop and its vendors, I'll start off by echoing some kind of eerie comments I stated in my May 2023 content. With an expected debt levered balance sheet after the management buyout, and the vitamin shop currently being the profit generating segment in the business, probably a quicker franchising and refranchising transition, and maybe a little tightening of the belt and pressure put on vendors. That's along with more focus being put on private label sales to increase profitability. So, current vendors at the vitamin shop should at least be cautious of that prediction. So, I obviously didn't foresee this bankruptcy 18 months ago, or maybe I would have stressed certain corporate accounting adjustments. But that being said, at least at the time of recording this content, I don't have documented understanding of how the Vitamin Shop will deal with the unsecured claim trade suppliers, with the largest several being owed more than $1 million each. And that's because the Vitamin Shop will want to retain its popular merchandising going forward, but these trade suppliers offering popular branded products and or the contract manufacturers of their private label products will want a payment solution beyond the boilerplate legal obligations on unsecured claims. As for authorized goods received after the bankruptcy filing, the Vitamin Shop will pay vendors in the ordinary course out of that DIP financing and or operating cash on hand. Additionally, from a longer term perspective, franchise group delevering its balance sheet should be viewed as a relatively good thing. And that's because franchise group can enhance support for the retail brands within the trim portfolio, helping build the systems, best practices, and mechanisms that go into a synergistic franchising platform. Yet, my guess is you don't really give a fuck if they owe you money now and need it to ensure your own business stays solvent. And then, on a final quick note, as part of this bankruptcy process, the franchise group will engage in a marketing process via court approved bidding procedures. This is being done because it will ensure that the franchise group is maximizing value and best positioning its operating businesses for long term success. So, while it's highly unlikely, the vitamin shop could be owned by a group that isn't the current debt holders. And if that happens, well, this content series will get a whole lot more interesting. But I hope you enjoyed the first principles thinking that went into my latest YouTube video. If you did, can you do me a favor by hitting that like button? That quick and free action helps YouTube know my content is worth spreading to more people. Also, we're getting really close to reaching my next subscriber goal, and it would be great if you join me on this journey. But to do that, we need to fix the fact that slightly more than 3/4 of you that are watching this video right now are not subscribed to my YouTube channel, and that hurts my feelings. Regardless, I want to thank you for giving me some of your attention and time, and I'll see you on the next one.